O'Neill Outside Radio is brought to you by these fine sponsors. The Whitetail Institute of North America, the gold standard for food plots. Realtree, camo hunting, fishing, and land management products. Tough Shed, great storage sheds and custom buildings. Works, power and garden tools. Fisher's Choice, the ideal solution to live bait. CVA, quality muzzleloader since 1971. QDMA, Quality Deer Management Association. Arctic Ice, the most durable, versatile, and effective cooler packs available. And Furminator, the finest food plot implement on the market.
Good morning, boys and girls, from Black Powder headquarters at Three Falls Cabin in the North Georgia Mountains. CVA presents Realtree Radio. Welcome to a brand new, unused Saturday morning. Good morning, boys and girls. This is O'Neill from Black Powder headquarters and the Bojangles studio high in the mountains of North Georgia, and it's an unused Saturday morning. Politics aside, finances aside, it's time to talk about the outdoors for the next couple of hours. And I have some special guests today, which I'll get to in a moment. But first of all, it's my pleasure to tell you this program is brought to you every Saturday by Works Tools, Realtree Camo, Stripling's General Store, Tough Shed, CVA Muzzleloaders, Snellville Heating and Air, Appalachian Gun and Range, Teeson's Outdoor Apparel, and Rocco's Pub, among so many others. And we'll be talking about outdoors this morning, of course, and we have some special guests. I'm not going to tell you who they are right now. You may not like them, and then you'll stop listening. I'd rather you stick around for a few minutes. So the telephone numbers are 404-872-0750 in the Atlanta area, and outside and worldwide, 800-972-8255, WSB 95.5 and 750 AM on your dial, plus the Sports Broadcast Nation, 121 stations nationwide, including WEEI in Boston, covering the Northeast, all the way from Seattle to LA to Miami, along the East Coast, so you can join us for outdoors. It is the number one live outdoor-based radio talk show in North America, and we hope that you enjoy listening. And when the show is over, maybe you will be reinforced as to things to do or not to do in the outdoors. It's deer season, and a great deal of our conversation this morning will be about that. I'll go ahead and introduce to you Charlie Killmaster. He is the DNR state whitetail biologist. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. State deer biologist.
State deer biologist. Yes, indeed. And Brian Price with the law enforcement. He's a game warden. Okay, he's the guy that can be an awful lot of help to you. Believe me, he's not one of your enemies. And we'll be talking with these fellows over the next couple of hours. Give us a call if you like, if you have questions about deer management, about law enforcement, things to do, not to do, and so on and so on. This is O'Neill. Got a break coming up, then we'll get started with the heart of the program when we return. Visit o'neilloutside.com, and there you can purchase, and I will personally sign the copy of O'Neill Outside, People and Places Along the Way. It's a book I wrote a couple of years ago, and there's 2 or 3 people that have written about it. And you can get a review of that book at Amazon.com. And I bribed an awful lot of people to give 5-star ratings. I hope you don't mind, but that's what you'll get because it costs me a lot to do that. And other than that, visit o'neilloutside.com and the podcast that you can locate there on SoundCloud and iTunes. iGoogle, and just a whole bunch of podcast stuff. So welcome to O'Neill every day. I hope you get a good dose of it. Now, let's get to the important part of our program this morning. We have with us Charlie Killmaster and Brian Price, and let's let's set the background a little bit. Charlie, give me a little thumbnail sketch of your history, what you do, with whom do you work, and what is your general job?
Okay. Yeah, so I work for the Wildlife Resources Division of DNR, Georgia DNR, and I'm the state deer biologist, have been for over a decade, but I'm also now the program supervisor of a new deer management assistance program for private lands.
Okay. And people need to know about that. Maybe we'll get to a little bit of that today. But other than that, then, our conversation, they can find out that about by going to the website.
Yeah,
Can't they?
GeorgiaWildlife.com, and if you want stuff about that new program, it's GeorgiaWildlife.com/DMAP.
Mm-hmm. Which has the DNR and somebody like you helping people with their private lands.
That's
Is that
correct.
not correct?
That's correct.
Okay. We'll do that. Brian, give me a little background.
Game Warden Brian Price, work for the Georgia Department of Natural Resources Law Enforcement Division. We pretty much, job duties consist of everything, patrolling the lakes, boating, hunting, fishing, anything outside related. We go as far as search and rescues. I mean, we're intense, and we do a lot.
What did you do prior to this, please, before you got this job with the DNR?
I used to work for Georgia Forestry Commission as a wildland firefighter and a state managed lands technician.
What were some famous fires you went and fought? Any?
There was the Bryan Head Fire out in Utah, in Nevada, and the Battle Mountain Fire in northern Nevada as well. Been down to Florida.
Oh, yeah?
So,
boy, you have to get on the plane and get out there or whatever, huh, for these fires?
yes, sir.
What, is Florida going to burn up?
I don't know. I hadn't saw it this year, so
Oh, wow.
it should be all right.
Okay. All right, the telephone numbers are, if you'd like to ask a question or make a statement or congratulatory remarks or anything for these fellas, the telephone numbers are 404-872-0750, or outside the Atlanta calling area and all over the country, it's 800-972-8255. We have a wealth of information and experience here with us this morning on O'Neill Outside. We will not have the Medal of Honor, the radio prize package, the guest book, and all those silly things that we do every week when O'Neill's here alone. So, Charlie, let's start with you.
All right.
Okay. What's the deer population in Georgia, and give us an idea about the southeast?
Yeah, so Georgia has an excellent deer population right now. We're about as imbalanced with the habitat as you could be. We've had a population that went overabundant for a lot of years, and then it kind of dipped below where we wanted it to be, and now we're kind of in that gravy zone. So right where we want to be, approximately 1 million deer. So it's excellent. We have a few areas like the mountains up here where we're at right now where the deer density is a little lower than we want it to be. But by and large, we're about as good of a place as we've ever been.
Okay, now let's talk about up here then in the mountains of North Georgia. And that's where the comes from up here. Charlie's been with us many, many years doing this. And I think I ask the same question every year, and I don't mind. What is it? What is the contributing factor then that would make you say that the white-tailed deer population in the mountains of North Georgia is, did you say it's lower than it should be?
It is.
Okay.
You know, it's something that we've got kind of under investigation right now. We've got a research project going on right now to really determine it. But what we think is going on is what we call predation as a function of habitat. So you have closed canopy forests with very few openings. Deer are an edge species. They need an interface between open fields or food plots or early successional habitat and forests. But when you get on the national forest, you've got a sea of closed canopy forest that shades out all of that fawning cover, making those fawns a lot more vulnerable to predation.
Well, there's no understory here, is there? It's all old-growth timber.
That's right. Well, it's not quite old growth, but it's certainly mature closed canopy forests.
So there's no sunlight hitting the ground.
That's right. Sunlight on the ground equals deer food and cover.
It's always, to me, it's amazing when I drive around the mountains up here and you'll see where someone has gone in and clear cut for whatever reason, selling the land, selling the timber, whatever the reason, that it recovers so quickly.
Yeah, the first 3 to 5 years following a clear cut, it's excellent habitat.
Mm-hmm.
So,
they've got a lot of things to eat.
right, it's setting back succession. That used to occur naturally. We would have catastrophic wildfires prior to human intervention of fire suppression that would really set back. It would kill trees. It would get sunlight on the ground. And we now have to mimic those natural processes in order to create good habitat practices.
Okay. Good. So did you tell me how many deer there were in Georgia? You said it's 1 million.
About 1 million.
That's a good combination.
Yes, sir. It's an inexact science. I mean, we can't.
Sure.
We have a hard time counting people in the state, much less deer. So
that's right.
But what I like to say is the population's either stable, increasing, or decreasing. Those are far more accurate terminology.
Well, personally, people quite naturally with the television and radio program, people will ask me and expect me to know all these questions that they would ask you. Because I'm not a scientist, and my answer is whatever the DNR says. That's what's my answer.
So that works.
It works for me. That shuts it down. So it shuts the question down.
Sure.
Because we got 1 million deer. When I started deer hunting after college in 1966, the limit was 1.
Yes, sir.
And now the limit is.
It's 12 right now. That may change in the future.
Oh, really?
Yes, sir.
How so?
Well, it's something that we're looking at. Part of this deer management assistance program, it gives us flexibility on properties that don't necessarily fit the mold. And so that allows us to set that bag limit to really what's more appropriate for the majority of the landscape across the state.
I see.
There's not a lot of properties out there that really that benefit from having a 12 deer limit, and it's been kind of a sore subject with the hunters. It's probably the number one comment that we get, the concern over the bag limit being too high. So
okay.
This, we're a long way from making changes to it, but it's certainly up for discussion.
Well, let me comment, and when we get back from this break, everyone, we're going to talk about Brian. I hadn't forgotten him, but people will ask me about that 12 limit. Okay. I don't know anyone. It's not like I know that many people. I don't know anyone who takes a limit.
It's about 0.3% of the hunting population.
No kidding. And that limit being 9 and 3?
No,
9
sir.
antlerless and 3?
10 and 2.
Oh, it's 10 and 2.
Yes,
okay,
sir.
well, see,
10
I
and 2.
learned something today. I've been misquoting you all this time.
He's been out there killing $3 every year for all these years.
Yeah. I don't
talk
know
later.
that I've killed a buck in 5 or 6 years. I'm ruined, from some of these other trips to some of these other places. And so I'm not a buck hunter anymore. I just sit in the stand and watch them.
Yes, sir.
Try to communicate with them, which is kind of mysterious anyway. Okay, we got to go for a break here. Brian Price is up next when you return for O'Neill Outside, 404-872-0750 or 800-972 outside the Atlanta calling area and all over the country. Here is your opportunity to speak with a wildlife biologist and law enforcement in Georgia, and it works for where you are too. I guarantee it. We'll be back. To Brian here for a moment. Noting to Brian here off air that he's got 400,000 people right now listening to the show. And as a game warden, a seasoned game warden with experience, what would be the one area of conversation that you would want to tell all these people all at once and first?
Hunter safety.
Okay. Let's narrow that down, all right? Hunter safety for the hunter. For the deer hunter, what would you tell him to be more cognizant of, or what piece of equipment should he have with him at all times?
There's a whole list. I would start off with wearing your orange. That is the main thing. Have 500 here in Georgia. It is,
The deer
500.
can't see it.
No, the deer can't see it.
No.
Even though you might think they do, more than likely they just smell you.
That's
and not see you, even though they're staring at you. But the other one is tree stand safety. Wearing your harnesses, your tree stand harnesses, and making sure your equipment is in proper use. And is checked yearly.
Mm-hmm.
Straps can dry rot, and that's where a lot of issues come from.
Mm-hmm. And not so long ago in Georgia, we've already had one fatality, haven't we? Not from deer stand, but somebody shooting at something that wasn't a clear target.
I believe so.
And that was out of season too, wasn't it?
I believe so.
It was bow season, and he shot his buddy in the woods. Absolutely no excuse for that. There's no reason that should ever remotely happen.
Nope. It's all about muzzle control. If you're going with someone that's out in the woods, know where they are, have contact with them, make sure they wear their orange. So when they're walking to the stand or back from it towards the evening, the other gentleman or woman doesn't mistake them for wildlife. It happens. So we press the fact of hunter safety and knowing where people are, and before you shoot and pull the trigger, know what you're looking at.
Would you guess that the guy who commits that makes that big a mistake, he's probably an inexperienced hunter, isn't he? Likely. You're guessing now, but likely.
Well, what we run into is it's inexperience mixed in with maybe a little excitement, lack of being in the woods. You know, we have, the hunter education that you're supposed to complete, before purchasing a hunting license. And, that's a good start. It's a good start for young people. And the more you're in the woods, the more experience you're going to gain. And the more
that's
you run
not
hunters.
if you're an experienced hunter, I think that's a deer over there. Bang. If you're an experienced hunter, you say, this is not the last one I'm going to see.
Right.
I don't need to hurry this shot.
Yeah, that's exactly it. A lot of people, with the lack of experience, kind of get the buck fever. Everybody gets the shakes when they see a deer, but really pay attention to what you're looking at, and before you make a shot, obviously have it in plain view, and don't just shoot at random moving bushes. And that's why the orange is a big safety issue.
I had a son of a friend. This was probably 15, 18 years ago, and he shot a young lady near camp who was in the woods relieving herself. And see, there's nothing that there's no deer that looks like that.
Right.
And she survived, to his luck.
Yeah.
But anyway, all right, 29 after the hour. We've got time to do this. We're back to you, it looks like, Charlie. So let's talk to Cody, and he's calling from Morgan County on O'Neill Outside. Good morning, Cody.
Good morning.
What you got going on? Talk to me.
Well, Charlie, I got a question for you. We have had a huge increase in the hog population on our property this year, and it has tremendously decreased the deer population via personal sightings and on trail camera. And I just wanted to know, other than we've run some experiments of pulling the feeders out and noticed that along with the hogs disappeared and the deer have disappeared because the neighbors are feeding. So my question is, what do we do besides hunting the hogs? And, we only have an 80-acre tract of land, so we can't really trap them. But what do we do to regain our deer numbers?
Okay, so I would definitely trap them. I think you got plenty enough property to trap them. You want to get hogs on bait and get them established in the area. And what you're looking for is to construct a pretty large corral trap, large diameter corral trap, and try to get as many pigs in one drop of the trap as you can. One thing you can do if you if you feel the need that you have to feed deer while you're hunting, and you have a problem with hogs, is to construct a low fence that's tall enough to keep the hogs out of the feeder, but low enough that a deer can jump over and access
Good idea.
it. That's one way to keep the hogs from having access to it. But you want to, with baiting hogs into a trap, you definitely want the feed readily accessible in that circumstance.
Well, let me add to that, Charlie, and Cody, listen up now. If you'll visit o'neilloutside.com, right there on the scroll at the top of the website, you'll see a indication for television shows. Go to the television show, and you will watch a program that Charlie and I did about hog trapping and hog management. And that's all the details about what to do, when to do it, and what's the effect.
That's right. And we, in that program, we really focus on whole sounder trapping, these remotely triggered traps. Obviously not cost practical for somebody on 80 acres, I understand that, but we are working, multiple agencies are working to get that technology out and accessible to more people across the state. We're not quite there yet, but we're working on it.
Okay. Does that help you, Cody?
Yeah, it does. It does. The only downside with that is our property neighbors, Hard Labor Creek State Park, and I know they're covered up with them. So I don't know. Every year it grows and grows, and not only the numbers, but the size of the pigs we're seeing. We killed one this summer that was almost 300 pounds.
Well,
and, they're mean, they're aggressive, and the deer won't be anywhere near them.
Turkeys won't either.
Well,
It's
a tough thing, and I do know they are actively trying to control them on Hard Labor Creek, and it's a what we call it. It's a process. It's not an event.
Yeah, I remember that. You said that in the show. I like that.
I stole that.
Yeah.
I stole that. So
it's a process, not an event. What he's referring to is the trapping.
right.
You bet. Glad you called, Cody.
Hey, I appreciate your time, guys. Good luck. Y'all be safe.
You bet. See you later. 33 after the hour. Quickly, if we can, let's talk about with Ed. Let's get to Ed right now. Ed, what do you got on your mind, sir?
Well, basically what I've got on my mind is my neighbors have told me I've got deer roaming my yard. And one time I almost stepped on a fawn just walking my property. Noticed it at the last moment because it stirred just a little bit. I'm looking for signs of them eating vegetation, and I've been looking for the graze line and stuff like that. I just want to, what are they eating out of my yard is the question.
Charlie?
There's a variety of commercial landscaping that deer love. Ornamental plants, they love hostas, they love impatiens, they love all kinds of stuff, and when you fertilize and irrigate it, you're just ringing the dinner bell for them. So they, just in the wild, deer eat upwards of 150 different species of plants. So you can imagine they have a very varied diet, but domestic.
It's like 6 pounds a day?
4 to 6 pounds of dry weight forage, not including water weight, dry weight forage a day.
That's a lot. They eating all the time except sleep.
Right. They have big stomachs that are designed to break down stuff that we would starve to death on. That big part, the first chamber of the stomach called the rumen. That's what allows them to survive on that stuff that we wouldn't survive on. It's a giant fermentation vat.
I see. Well, every time we with Charlie, we always learn something. And at your house, Ed, I would guarantee you the deer are probably used to the smell of humans, and they're not afraid of you. What do you think?
I'll agree with you on that. Although, I can get in the window and they don't really flinch.
They're generally not afraid of you. Those are neighborhood deer.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
And is there any danger with being around them?
Okay, Charlie, quickly.
Not usually.
I want to ask because there's a discussion online that some people think they're good looking and cute and that kind of stuff, and I wonder if there's any danger that we need to be aware of.
Yeah, so what you want to watch out for is people taming them, whether they catch a fawn and hand raise it, or people that are trying to train deer to where they can hand feed them. I've seen it. What happens is when you get a deer that's that accustomed to humans, that's that imprinted by humans, they tend to view humans as other deer, and they can become aggressive.
Yes.
When a doe has her fawn, she is going to be very protective towards dogs or people walking their dogs, especially, or bucks.
Ed, Charlie, I got to go, pal. You stay in touch, Ed, Charlie. Everybody hold on. We'll be back. 40 minutes after the hour, we're going to change directions here just for a moment with Brian Price. Again, by way of introduction, he is a game warden. He's a law enforcement division of the Department of Natural Resources. So pick out one. What's the most used question that you are asked? You're in a Waffle House, you're in a store, and you're dressed like this, and people want to make you be friends, and they want to ask you a question. What is it?
To be honest with you, there's not just one question. I get asked every day multiple questions.
Mm-hmm.
They range from fishing to hunting, boating, hunter safety, the do's and don'ts. There's so much that we as game wardens and law enforcement have to do, and there's so much information in Georgia as far as rules and regulations, specifically in fishing, hunting, boating, that I can't answer that question.
Right, I see. Well, and that's in every state. Every state has a department, much like both of you are in. And show that magazine to the camera, so that that camera right there. Show that magazine. There you are. There's your first, the Regs magazine.
That's
and
it.
It's free, and you can pick it up where and how often, and give me some background.
It's free. You got the hunting season regulations one, and you also right here is the sport fishing.
Mm-hmm.
So this has all the fishing stuff in there. They're free. You can pick them up at Walmart on the shelf when you go to purchase a fishing license, hunting license there. If you go in, with a family and your wife's, doing some grocery shopping and you want to get into the sporting goods section all across, the United States, and you can pick them up there.
What's the biggest violation on the water?
Life jackets. We get a lot of life jackets, jet skiers that are on the water, that are jumping wake within boats, navigation lights, the list goes on. But the biggest safety issue is wearing your life preserver.
Correct me if I'm wrong, this is a big issue because I think Lake Lanier, close to Atlanta, and there are big lakes, whatever state you live in, but Lake Lanier is the most visited Corps of Engineers lake in North America.
It is very populated.
What, like 6 or 7 million people a year go to Lake Lanier?
I don't know
astronomical number.
I don't know the statistics, but it's a lot. There's a lot of people just because of its geological location.
Yeah, so close to a big city.
Yeah, that's it. And it's further away, so it's not in the city, but it is close in a nice day's drive to get there, and it's a beautiful place.
Oh yeah.
So you just got to
be safe. I go to Clark
on the water.
Hill or Hartwell or I like Russell.
Yeah.
Oh man, you go up there.
Yeah, Russell's nice. That buffer around the lake where no houses can be built.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
That's right.
I tell you what, when I used to do so many shows, I used to love to go to East Tennessee because you could go up there on a weekend at Cherokee and Douglas and some of those lakes and not see another boat.
Holy cow.
On a weekend. Yeah, empty because they're not close to any cities.
You get on Lake Lanier, and it's going to be 10 degrees, and you're still going to see boats.
Oh, absolutely. So. I can remember, pardon me for directing the subject matter toward me, but I had a friend, still have a friend, and his dad had a boat, and they would invite me. My dad wasn't an outdoorsman, and they would invite me, and we would go to Lake Lanier in 1957. And I can remember remarking on a Saturday or a Sunday, look, there's another boat. Not anymore.
No, sir.
404-872-075800. 972, should you have questions with my guests today, Charlie Kilmaster and Brian Price, both with the Department of Natural Resources, and they spend their daily lives about outdoors and safety and law enforcement, and so forth. So they are both a wealth of information, and you should avail yourself of it this morning on O'Neill Outside, because I can assure you, if this were, if you guys were from South Carolina, North Carolina, Tennessee, Virginia, Alabama, the questions and answers are almost the same, aren't they?
A lot of them, yes.
Mm-hmm. Just at different levels.
Yes, sir. There's a lot of similarities across many of the states. Something like hunter safety, it's the same no matter where you go.
Oh, yeah. Falling out of the stand doesn't matter what state you live in.
That's right.
No kidding.
No.
So, all right, I have a premise to put before you, and you tell me if I'm true.
Okay.
If it's true, Charlie, in essence.
Okay.
Okay. Or there are no absolutes. This is radio. We get to do it again next week. I tell people, because I've got a big mouth, all antlered animals are bigger the farther away they are from the equator. Am I right or partially wrong?
Generally speaking, yes. As you move towards northern latitudes, those animals have adapted over thousands of years to pack on lots and lots of body fat, because if they didn't make it through the winter.
They died.
Right. So the further north you get bigger body size and lower surface area. When you're in a southern state like Georgia, deer are more lanky. They got a lot more surface area, a lot more skin area than they do body mass. So it's
like
just
Texas, everything's real tall, long
Right.
legs, dissipate the heat, right?
Right, dissipate the heat. A good example is you look at a southern breed of cattle like a Brahma, and they're tall, lanky. They got a lot of extra skin. They're a South American species, close breed that was developed towards the equator, so they're better adapted to dissipate heat versus something like an Angus. It's a European breed.
I see. Well, I say things like that because I don't know specifics. I just use generalities. Okay. Well, and all right. So here's the question again for you, Charlie. How in the world, if indeed the whitetail deer rutting season or mating season is a result of the photo period, how is it then that the rut in, we'll use specifics, the rut along the coast of Georgia is October, but North Georgia it's late November, and in Alabama it's January? How'd that happen?
Well, so
now there's not a 2-hour answer now, so you got
yeah.
Okay.
So it's genetically ingrained whether it's October, November, December, but it's the photo period. That's what tells them when to flip that switch.
Right.
So we've got deer were subjected to different forces, but then when we went and restocked deer from the Barrier Islands in Georgia, from Wisconsin to Texas, we messed all of that up, and we have a real unique genetic mix in the Deep South where we've introduced all these different genetics, and so we have a much more varied rut depending on where you are in the state. Mm-hmm. And you go south in Florida, and there's some parts of Florida that are flood prone that actually start rutting in late July, believe it or not. Mm-hmm. Could you imagine hunting in South Georgia in July?
No.
Their hunting season starts.
And that resulted from, if they didn't rut then and had the fawns appropriately, and that carried on and on and on to dictate that rutting period.
Right. Well, spring rains. Yeah. So if you got spring rains, you're going to have a different rut, because those fawns, if they were dropped during the rainy season, they wouldn't survive. Mm-hmm. So
that's what happened in Alabama. Southwest Alabama.
That's right.
When the river flooded, it drowned the fawns. But if the fawns were born late, so that means the rut in Alabama is January and February.
That's right. And we have a pocket in southwest Georgia that's the same way. The difference in all of southern Alabama is they actually stocked most of the southern part of their state. When they restocked it, they stocked it from a floodplain area. Mm-hmm. So that's why they rut so much later, even though they're just across the state line.
I think Alabama's a great time. It's great to go hunting in January and February, and Alabama's available to do that. Mm-hmm. But other than that, and the different species of white-tailed deer and those long-term dictates of the photo period, he's a white-tailed deer. He does the same thing.
from South America to Canada.
Mm-hmm.
One of the most widest ranging species, and there's different subspecies for sure, but they're all essentially the same critter.
Okay, same white-tailed deer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, let's go back to you, Brian, for a minute. Oh yeah, man, you sure do. Okay, yeah, we've got Coach that we've got some callers, and it's 50 after the hour. And let's go to Mark. He's in Noonan, Georgia. Let me ring him up there correctly.
That's my hometown.
Yeah, you're from Noonan,
I'm
are
from
you?
Noonan,
no
Georgia.
Kidding. Okay, Mark, you're on the air.
Yes,
This is
sir.
O'Neill.
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, just have a couple of questions for Mr. Killmaster there.
Okay.
I have a buddy here that has some private land down in Heard County, has a lake on it, and he told me that there's a law in the books that states if you're raising raisable fish like tilapia in your pond or lake, that it has to be accessible by the public. I just wonder if that was true or not.
Not accessible by the public, but if you want to raise tilapia, you've got to have a permit, and it has to be in some sort of tank. You can't do it just in a farm pond where eggs or something like that can get into the stream system. It's got to be in a very contained system to keep those fish or eggs from getting out and populating. They're an invasive species, so you can't just throw them in a farm pond.
How about
No.
that?
Yeah, interesting.
How the
Just
deer
one other
biologist
quick
knows
question.
that, I don't know, but go ahead. I'm
Can I
sorry.
ask you one?
Certainly.
Somebody told me that the reason there's so many deer hanging around interstates is that the diesel fumes from the semis settles onto the grass and it gives it a sweet taste. Have you ever heard of that?
I have not, but I can tell you that a lot of time people will dress corn with diesel to trap hogs with to keep the deer off of it. So I would call bunk on that.
Okay.
My assumption is that most of Georgia, you've got so many forested areas, and those medians provide a food source. There's not just grass out there. There's going to be clover and other broadleaf forbs that are mixed in with that grass, and that's more the attractiveness of those medians. And so that's probably why you're seeing them there.
Okay.
Yeah, I kind of figured that.
You bet. Glad you called, Mark.
All right, thanks, O'Neill. Take care.
You bet. See you later. All right, I want to get this question asked, and then we'll go to a break, and then we'll let Brian answer it. Good morning, Rex. What's your question, sir?
Good morning. I was given a call. I have some neighbors that are hunting on my property, and I want to enforce my property line, and I want to know the law and how I have to do that as regards posting and notice. I want to be a good neighbor, but I don't want them hunting on my land.
No, you don't. You don't know who these people are. No, you don't. We're going to go to this. I'm going to put the numbers back out there again, and when we return, Rex, if you'd like to listen, we'll let Brian get to that answer.
Thank you so much.
You bet. All right, I'll drop you out of here, and let's get to it right now before we go to the break. I got a few seconds, then we'll come back to it also. Somebody's hunting on private land.
Yeah, so you have private property, and you don't want anybody hunting on your property. If you do, they have permission. Obviously, if they don't have permission, you want to address that. Post it, your property boundaries. That's a good start. That way, people can't sit there and say, "Well, I didn't know."
I didn't know it wasn't
your property.
All right, this is poorly managed, but you hold that because we want to get to that answer. This is O'Neill on O'Neill Outside, 53 after the hour, and we'll be back, I promise. Well, welcome back. We're in the midst of a question for Brian Price about hunting on someone else's property. Give me briefly the details.
So, pretty much general. You want to go ahead if you're having issues with someone coming on your property that you don't want on your property or that doesn't have permission to be on your property. Go ahead and put up no trespassing property signs on your boundaries if you have conjoining lands. That way, someone, as we mentioned before we went to break, can't sit there and say, "Well, I didn't see it." It is posted. If you call and you have someone on your property and you don't want them there, and you call us, we have you fill out a landowner affidavit form.
Mm-hmm.
And on that landowner affidavit form, you put on that form who is allowed to be on your property.
Okay.
And so whoever you have on that form, and you have to be willing to prosecute and sign a form to prosecute the individuals.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, whoever you have on that form, we have that on file in our system. And so you don't have to be there or anything like that. And if we go on your property and we patrol your property and we find somebody that is there and their name's not on that, then we can prosecute them individuals.
That's got to happen a lot.
It does. And now with the, everything's getting built up, and we don't have these large hunting properties anymore, and we're starting to get smaller tracts and more suburban areas. We're getting people crossing the lines a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is common, and it is one of the things that we address.
Okay, well, you got a big job and an awfully big territory. And we're going to get to that when we return. This first hour is over. We have more outdoors headed your way, I promise. I'll try to keep my mouth shut in the second hour, and we'll talk to some professionals. This is O'Neill, and we'll be back.
O'Neill Outside Radio is brought to you by these fine sponsors. The Whitetail Institute of North America, the gold standard for food plots. Realtree, camo hunting, fishing, and land management products. Tough Shed, great storage sheds and custom buildings. Works, power and garden tools. Fisher's Choice, the ideal solution to live bait. CVA, quality muzzleloader since 1971. QDMA, Quality Deer Management Association. Arctic Ice, the most durable, versatile, and effective cooler packs available. And Furminator, the finest food plot implement on the market.
Good morning, boys and girls, from Black Powder headquarters at Three Falls Cabin in the North Georgia Mountains. CVA presents Realtree Radio. Welcome to a brand new, unused Saturday morning. Welcome, everyone. It's 6 after the hour. This is O'Neill. I have some selfish promotion to go on, then I'll introduce our guest to you if you haven't already joined us. We have a lot of calls. I'm here to tell you that this program is brought to you every Saturday morning by Works Tools, Realtree, Stripling's, Tough Shed, CVA Muzzleloader, Snellville Heating and Air, Appalachian Gun and Pawn and Range, Teeson's Outdoor Apparel, and Rocco's Pub, among so many others. And you can visit o'neilloutside.com, whereby you can purchase O'Neill Outside. People and places along the way. If you buy it off the website, I'll personalize it for you. You can get the book off of Amazon also. And if you visit the website, you can watch all of our shows by clicking on the television tab. And you can listen to our webcast at Apple and Google and SoundCloud and so on. If this isn't enough of O'Neill for you, you can listen to me while you ride around in the truck. I don't, but you can. So we do handle a lot of subjects. As a matter of fact, now I find out that the television show audio is on podcast radio. Wow, I discovered that myself this week. So, a lot of things going on. We will not have the Medal of Honor tribute, the guest book questions, nor the radio prize package this morning because we have, and we'll get to it after the break, we have with us Charlie Killmaster, DNR whitetail biologist and specialist, and a game warden. How about that? Do you want to see this guy? He is your buddy, I'm telling you. Yeah, and so we will have Dwayne also, and we have questions already on the on our lineup, and I appreciate you guys holding on so long. This is O'Neill. The telephone numbers are 404-872-0750 or 800-972-8255. We have Charlie Killmaster. And you know something? How about that? I forgot. Brian Price.
Brian Price.
Yeah, we've just met this morning. Listen, we'll be back. You stay right there. This is an interesting show. Welcome back, everyone. 12 after the hour. We have some subjects to get to, but we will get to those pretty soon. But a lot of people have been holding on quite a while. First of all, let's talk to Jim, and he's calling from Monroe, Georgia. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning, Professor O'Neill.
Okay. Good morning, Jim. What do you got on your mind, son?
Well, I got a question for you. I was around the area the other day, and a couple of guys were telling me we had wolves in Georgia, and I told them that my opinion was, from what I'd read, that the red wolf was gone, that they tried to reintroduce it, but it didn't make it. Is that true, false, or what? Then I have another question after that.
All right, Charlie, comment, please.
Yeah, so the red wolf reintroduction pretty much failed. They're really just limited to an area of North Carolina and a few captive populations scattered around. So what we have in Georgia are coyotes. Now, with that said, our coyotes in Georgia and all over the southeast do have a touch of gray wolf genetics in them.
Ooh.
So they are typically a little bit larger than western coyotes, but they, in their eastward migration, they went north and picked up some gray wolf genetics, and that's still residual, actually more than red wolf genes.
Interesting. What else you got, Jim?
Well, I've got a question for him. I know and I respect those guys and Mr. Killmaster and all those fellas in that organization, but I got a question. If you've already got the affidavit, like what you talked about, and they do catch it, will they arrest them on the spot, or is there a whole different process that has to go along with that?
Brian?
So you have the affidavit. Obviously, that's in the system for the game wardens in that area and that region, and that allows them obviously to come on and, give them the citation, given the circumstances, and be able to, as long as you're willing to prosecute. Obviously, you got the landowner affidavit, so you are, for them to be arrested and tried.
Interesting.
And one other question. How would you handle a situation where the adjoining property to you has got a skeet set up, but they're shooting and coming across with clay pigeons and shot across the creek to you?
Oh.
How would you try to approach that situation?
Interesting.
How I would try to approach it, I would try to talk to your neighbor. I mean, that's kind of the best thing you can do to start with. Go and speak with them, tell them your concerns, and see if he don't mind maybe changing the direction of the shots. Just the old friendly neighbor tactic, and see if y'all can't come into some type of understanding between one another and get that situation resolved.
And the last question is, do I need to have a DNR officer with me if a deer goes onto somebody else's property? I don't want to get in a situation to where I end up getting arrested if I'm trying to recoup a deer according to Georgia law.
No, you don't need to have one with you, but you do have to have permission from that landowner that the deer went on. Technically, at that point, if you don't have permission, then you would be what we spoke to earlier on the property, and you'd be trespassing. And that deer does belong to the individuals or the property that the deer lies on.
There you are.
So you would talk to them, like I said, another friendly neighbor thing, and
do it before you shoot the deer.
Yes, not as you shoot the deer. Most definitely do it before. So
good questions, Jim.
Yes, sir, Mr. O'Neill. You be sure and give that lady of yours a big hug and a big kiss that would just make Oral Roberts.
I will do that too. Thanks for calling, my friend. Next up, holding on the longest is Shane. He's calling from Ellijay up here in the mountains. Good morning, Shane.
Good morning, gentlemen. How are you this morning?
Good. What's your question, sir?
I'm a second-year hunter, man, and everybody keeps talking about the rut, and I understand what that is, being a male myself. I'm just wondering, in the North Georgia mountains, if I start putting out the estrus now, is it a good time, or am I going to scare? Am I going to just go out there and sit with nothing, or your thoughts
Charlie?
I'm hunting in LJ.
Right. So I wouldn't bother using a lot of those scent attractants. They have varying levels of success, and you're not going to change much of anything by doing it. The best thing you can do is spend time in the woods. Now, depending on where exactly you hunt, as you get further north into the mountains, our rut actually starts to get later, up towards December, and so depending, you could have a November rut, or if you're further north, you could actually be in December. If you go to GeorgiaWildlife.com and do a search for rut map, you can select the county that you're hunting in, and you can see when the peak rut is for that county.
And it'll be dependable too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And of course, the smart aleck answer, when is the rut? It's the same time as last year.
That's right.
Yeah.
It doesn't really change much from year to year.
Not at all.
Okay.
And I'd add to that a little bit.
Go ahead, Brian.
You know, also, given this area, typically your Thanksgiving, time frame within, kind of LJ and Cherokee and Dawson and kind of this central northern area, typically around Thanksgiving is the time you need to be in the woods.
Okay.
So, I mean, they're starting to get antsy and doing a little chasing. Some people are seeing it, some people are not. Just yesterday, I saw one chasing in Dawson County.
Oh,
so
okay.
It's getting that time. They're getting geared up.
Well, there you are. I hope it's some help to you, Jim.
I got one other question.
Sure, go ahead.
To have permission, I hunt on an old lady's property, and she filled out just a little letter saying she gives me permission, and we're not sure if we're in the guidelines of that. She put her address, and does she need her contact? How does that work? Because I keep that letter with me.
Yep, that's good. That's
hunting.
good. What you need to have is just what you have, a written. You can have just a written slip from her, showing that you have permission to be on the property, and you keep that on you. And so if I ever or any other officer comes by and checks you, and you have that on there to prove that you have you're allowed to be on that property.
Okay. Good questions, Shane.
Okay, thanks, guys.
You bet. See you soon. Here's our good friend from New York, John. Good morning, John.
Yes, greetings from the Catskill Mountains, where I like to say, O'Neill, God bless our military veterans and their families.
Yes, indeed.
It's going to be Veterans Day.
Mm-hmm.
We take a field in a free country because of their sacrifices.
Absolutely.
Okay, my question or comment, last week I called and explained I don't walk directly to my tree stand. I walk out in front of it because I've killed 3 bucks that have tracked me to my stand after they lost the doe's tracks. Now, the biggest doe I ever killed was with a bow. She tracked me to my deer stand. Charlie, have you ever heard of anything like that?
Not really. I don't know that they're necessarily following your scent per se. I think you probably got your deer stand in a good area, and they're following that. As it could have something to do. Are you hunting in snow?
No.
Okay.
No. I when I saw her, I was amazed how big she was. She went into the scrape. She snipped the branch overhead. She walked away, and she picked up on my tracks. And I was so astounded, I almost forgot to draw the bow back.
Huh. Yeah, I don't really know what to make of that. I don't know that that it it's just happenstance or.
Look at it, Charlie. John, I'm sorry. Those are Yankee deer, and we don't have them figured out. Okay.
I was just wondering if she was in heat, if she was. I don't know. I
doubt they. I would have to say. I'll take up for Charlie here. I doubt that they tracked you to the stand. There was something else that they followed to the stand, not you.
Well, I will say this: deer like to follow the path of least resistance, just like people do,
like a cow.
Yeah.
So it could be that the way that you found to walk into your stand was something the deer like too. So
there you are.
Okay.
Glad you called, pal. I appreciate you listening to the show.
Sure, thanks.
You bet. There you go. Here's who's up next here, fellows. Oh, gosh, I got to get out of here. This is O'Neill. I'm sorry, I can't manage the time. We'll be back. You're listening to and watching on Facebook O'Neill Outside with Brian Price and Charlie Kilmaster. And we have a couple of calls, but we want to get to this chronic wasting disease things before the show ends. But right now, let's talk to Kevin calling from Texas. Good morning, Kevin. This is O'Neill. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, O'Neill. I appreciate you taking my call. Kevin, the truck driver down here, just finishing up my shift and about to go jump in the pickup and head to the deer lease, actually. Hey, I got a question. Where I hunt at here in Texas, we do have an overlap of mule deer and whitetail, and they will crossbreed, correct?
That's right.
Okay. I thought they did. I mean, I've seen pictures. I haven't seen any myself. This is a new place I'm hunting at, but my plan is to be sure about what I'm shooting before I shoot it. I'm going to try not to shoot a hybrid outside of mule deer season if I can be positive about it. But how is game warden going to look at that? If someone on the lease does kill a hybrid and it's not yet mule deer season, or it's after mule deer season, how is that looked on?
Well, I'm not sure how Texas enforces that, and so my best recommendation would be to pick up the phone and give Texas Parks and Wildlife a call and ask them that specific question. That's a pretty, something we don't have to deal with over here in Georgia, and that's your best bet is to call the game wardens out there and talk to the ones that are going to be enforcing the law. Mm-hmm. And, I just don't know how they treat the hybrids. So,
well, you should be able to tell whether he's got that, dark brow and.
Yeah, but I don't know if they're legal in both seasons or not. It would just depend. So
they are separate seasons. No kidding. Great question, Kevin. You bet. Have a great weekend, pal. You betcha. There we go. You bet. All right, we've got time for this one right here before we get to something else. Oh, here's a good one. Here's John calling from Peachtree Corners. Good morning, John. You're on the radio. Welcome.
Good morning, O'Neill. Thank you so much for your service and all you've done. I've listened to you since the 90s, and same to the gentlemen. They're doing a great service to us all. I'm new to hunting, a year and a half in. Coyotes and hogs. I'm starting to get interested in the bear hunting, and my question is, perhaps y'all can, maybe Charlie can touch on the bear population in the northern zone of Georgia, and perhaps Brian can touch on the mistakes that new bear hunters regarding violations may make.
All right, well staged.
In Georgia.
Okay. Very healthy bear population. We got a lot of bears in North Georgia, and we welcome you to come up here and get you one or two of them. So we've a lot of public land and a lot of good access for bear hunting. So come on and go get them.
Okay. Yeah, you bet.
Well, I was warned by a deer hunter not to hunt bear because of the hassle of the check-in and perhaps investigations of the kill.
Oh no, not up in North Georgia. It's you've got to report it. You just got to call and report it within 24 hours, and then I think within after that you've got a certain amount of time to bring it by either one of our check stations or one of our offices to get it tagged.
There is a minimum size to that too,
right?
There,
you can't shoot cubs. Under 75 pounds.
Right.
So,
and
go ahead.
Under 75 pound, I thought it was 100 pounds. I'm getting confused. Maybe I'm thinking about
75
Virginia.
pounds.
That'd be 75 pounds.
And finally, I've read the statutes, and I've read your print, the books that you get at Walmart, and is it legal on national forest to legally harvest a deer, leave it in its last position, and then hunt over it for bear?
Ooh, you're baiting for
bear. I would say that's a no, because technically, bears do eat meat, and that would be baiting. Are you referring to? We get asked questions. Well, I'll leave the guts behind and can I hunt a bear over it? I would say most definitely no to that question.
Interesting.
That'd be hunting over
Interesting
bear.
question. Interesting
Thank you
question.
so much.
You bet.
Yes, sir.
John, thanks for calling.
All right, bye-bye.
You bet. There you are. Let's get these questions out of the way, and then we'll get to that chronic wasting stuff. Not to get them out of the way, but 30 minutes after the hour. And we'll go back with Brian with a question here from Jody, calling from Covington. Good morning, Jody. You're on the air.
Good morning, O'Neill. Thank you very much.
You bet.
I just wanted to get a little clarification on the posting. I know we need to post a property, but is there a legal distance or a legal sign that you have to use so that somebody does come on the property, they can't have the argument, well, I didn't see a sign, I walked in between them and didn't see them, or something like that? Is there a distance between the signs and a certain sign you have to use?
Good question.
No. There's no difference. A private property, no trespassing, your standard signs. I would use. I mean, you're not going to sit there and mark every tree.
Right.
That's plain and simple. So put it up at your discretion, and it comes to the other people that's hunting out there, and to know where their property lines are. They need to do their due diligence and know where they are hunting and what property lines are close to, so they can avoid that. So it's not just on your behalf. You can do the signs and all the stuff on your end, but at the same time, the hunter needs to be the one to do their due diligence.
Is there a universal color or something that you can put on the trees that would be generally acceptable other than a sign, or can you paint the tree yellow or something like that?
You can paint trees. A lot of people with timber paint the boundaries. You can use paint. It don't really matter what color to paint the boundaries as well. All WMAs are they have signs put up, yellow signs in the state of Georgia, and they're painted as well. All around the properties. So
yeah, because I know if I see a tree with a yellow marking around it, I know that's the edge of the WMA.
That's correct.
Or that is the WMA.
That's correct.
Yeah, that is the WMA.
It's always the responsibility of the hunter to know they're on the right property.
That's right. There you are. How about that, Jody?
Thank you very much for your help.
You bet. See you later, pal. Thanks for listening to the program. 32 after the hour. Let's do this one also, if I can bring it back up. And okay. Now, let's take a couple of minutes. We've got 3 minutes. Let's talk about the chronic wasting disease.
All right. So chronic wasting disease is slowly creeping its way across our country. Just in the last few years, it was found in Arkansas, then Mississippi, and now Tennessee, a state that borders Georgia. So it's still a good bit west of us, but one of the main things we can do as hunters to prevent the spread of chronic wasting disease is to be knowledgeable about moving carcasses, particularly whole carcasses, from areas or states that might have chronic wasting disease into states that don't, like Georgia. So the best way to be safe in most states and follow the rules in every state you may drive across, if you go, say, hunt in Colorado and bring that meat back to Georgia, is boned out meat is safe. Clean skull plate with antlers attached is safe. Something, ready to make a taxidermy mount, and hides that have been fleshed, no big chunks of flesh on them, and finished taxidermy mounts, or boiled out European mounts. Those are all safe things to bring back. What you don't want is a whole intact head with the cape still attached, like most people would normally take a deer to the taxidermist. You need to go ahead and cape that animal out, cut the skull plate off, and clean that skull plate real good.
That's where it's located, isn't it?
Yep.
The brain.
So if you're in another state, say Tennessee, and you shoot a buck, clean that skull plate, run by the car wash, pressure wash the skull plate off, and get all the tissue off of it, and you're good to go.
How about that? Chronic wasting disease began in where?
Colorado. First found in the 1960s in Colorado, and now it's in more than half of the United States. Now, it's limited to smaller geographic areas within those states, but it's something, once you get it, you've got it, and so prevention is the best thing we can do. We've already halted any introduction of live deer, which is the primary way that it spreads.
It is. That was my next question.
But it can come from infected carcass parts, and so that's why you need to be cognizant of that and keep them out. And there are already states that have a blanket ban on movement of whole carcasses from all states.
Oh.
So when
this
you go
is serious
hunt,
business, isn't
it? When you hunt out a state, you've got to know the rules of every state that your state that you're going back to, and every state that you drive through, because you run the potential of getting your meat and your antlers completely confiscated, and a citation on top of that. And in Georgia, it's a misdemeanor of a high and aggravated nature, and could potentially land you with jail time.
Yeah, most
depending
definitely.
on the circumstances.
It's a serious issue, and we try to do our best to enforce it.
We don't want this chronic
we don't
wasting
want it.
disease.
No,
we don't want this.
We don't know what the long-term effects are going to be. It's not an immediately apparent disease. What's likely going to happen, what we're seeing with modeling, is we're not going to see the real detrimental effects for 30 to 50 years down the road.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're doing now is impacting our children and grandchildren.
Oh boy! I got 10 seconds. Is transmitted by what we're doing, not by what deer are doing.
It spreads fairly slow on its own. It's the human activity that's made it jump to all these other states, moving live deer, moving infected carcass parts.
We have more. This is O'Neill. Special guest today. Join us. We'll be back. We're deep in welcome back. You've been listening to O'Neill Outside, #1 live outdoor-based radio talk show in the United States, and we appreciate you joining us. We've been on the air now for 28 years. Scary, isn't it? 40 minutes after the hour. We've got a call here we want to handle, then we're going to return to this chronic wasting disease and some more things from Brian about enforcement and some recommendations. But right now, let's talk to Ross. He's calling from Roswell. Good morning, Ross.
Hello.
Hello, Ross. You're on the air.
Yes, I'd like to ask Mr. Killmaster if the number of hunters is increasing or decreasing.
Nationwide, hunters are certainly decreasing as a percentage of the population. In Georgia, fortunately, the last several years it's been stable. We've actually seen an increase a little bit in the number of deer hunters. So we are definitely doing a better job at what we call R3, hunter recruitment, retention, and reactivation. And we have put a lot of effort into that, and it's paying off.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you very much.
You bet. Thank you for calling. Good subject matter, Ross. Thank you for calling. Okay. Let's go back to this chronic wasting disease for a moment. And you were mentioning Wisconsin.
Right.
What has been the long-term effect so far of the presence of chronic wasting disease?
So it's been in Wisconsin for a long time, and in some areas it went unmanaged for a period of time, and so some areas up there you might have 50% of the mature bucks testing positive for the disease. So just imagine having to discard the meat. First of all, having to test every animal that you kill, and then having to discard the meat from every other deer, every other buck that you kill in an area.
I can't imagine.
It ruins your opportunity.
Talking about reducing the number of hunters. Oh my goodness! What if you had to do that here?
Right. Yeah, it ruins your opportunity for quality deer management. And meat is one of the primary driving forces for why many people hunt. And if you can't eat it, then it brings up a whole ethical dilemma of why you hunt and how you hunt, and then it reduces our ability to then manage that population of deer when you have people that don't want to hunt in that area. So it's I hate to see people get complacent with the disease when they don't see the immediate effects like you do with hemorrhagic disease or blue tongue, and it's those long-term chronic effects that we're going to see years down the road, and we owe it to our children and grandchildren to be responsible and prevent the spread of this disease now.
That's right.
That's right.
Excellent subject matter. Brian, what did you have coming up?
Well, I wanted to talk and touch base. I had a question the other day, and people, I guess, are in the interpretation that this new game check and online. And so when you harvest here in Georgia, you harvest a deer, you still have to have that license on you, and in your deer harvest record. And some people are under the interpretation that, well, I killed the deer and I checked it on my game check, when I got back truck and whatnot. That's not the case. That's good, and you do need to do that. But when you kill that deer, you still have to have that license on you and that deer harvest record, and you still have to sign that deer harvest record before moving the animal from that location. And then once you do that, you can do it onto the game check. But just doing it on the game check does not suffice for at that moment. Because if I come, walking in and you haven't done that and you moved it and you don't have it tagged, well, then we got some other issues.
So what about if they on the app, you can download your license and then sync your license after you've game checked it and it fills out your harvest record? Is that adequate if you can produce and show that
if you can produce it on your phone? So technology nowadays, you have the original paper copy where you get printed off, and you can print them off for free. Go online. You go georgiadnr.org and purchase it there, Walmart, or we got the Go Outdoors app now. And a lot of people are using this Go Outdoors app, and supposedly it's supposed to work. Far as not having service and it's still supposed to work. I get it a lot. Technology, people are starting to go that route. If you can pull it up on your phone, that is fine, as long as you can show me. A lot of times that game check though is not going to produce it right away. On you still have to have that license on you, and you still, before removing that carcass, have to fill that paper copy out, and then you could go do it on game check.
I carry mine in my billfold.
And I carry several copies. Fishing license, I put some here and there, and hunt license, I have one in my truck. It's good that we have this technology, but you still have to have that paper copy before removing the deer from that location, sign it, and then you report it. I know when you do report it, a gentleman told me that it does, if you go to reprint it, it'll show up on that. If you can do it right then and there, and you can show me that deer harvest record right there before you move it, that I'll suffice that. That's fine. So I just want to touch base on that because I had a question the other day. So
okay, I'm going to return because we have a different audience now than we started with in the first hour, and I'm going to refer to one of my favorite subjects when I think this is awfully important for the general population to know, and that is, very simply again, for contributions from both of you, who pays for conservation and for wild places and wild things in this country?
Hunters and anglers. Hunting license and fishing license purchases, and on top of that, excise taxes at the manufacturer's level on firearms, ammunition, fishing tackle, archery equipment. All of these things fund the bulk of conservation and help to restore our game populations to what they are now.
We have deer in Georgia and have hunting in Georgia because hunters and fishermen paid for it.
That's right.
Absolutely, 100%. Yep. The Pittman-Robertson Act, Wildlife Restoration Act, 1937.
That's right.
Okay. I bring that subject up to all of you guys who are listening because the holiday season is coming up. There'll be a lot of family, corporate, and company gatherings, and you could be challenged by someone that's not informed as to how in the world you can be a hunter, how in the world can you eat these animals and be a part of this that they find so detesting. And so you need to be armed properly to say, hold on, and let me explain to you the effect of all of this and what has the effect been since 1937. And it's all extremely positive. We pay. The hunter and the fisherman raised his hand and said, I'll pay. Put an excise tax on all my gear and my permits and my licenses and my all of these. We pay for conservation. Not PETA, not the Fund for Animals, not the Humane Society. We do. Okay. Anyway, that's my pat subject matter when I go to when I'm fortunately invited to speak. That's the number one, because hey, it's not my job to spread campfire stories. Let's handle the facts, right?
That's right.
That's right.
Now, I tell people when this weekend I went hunting, and I was with some knowledgeable hunters this week. Okay, they didn't need any coaching from O'Neill, but we had an opportunity to address some subjects about hunting tactics and scent control and all of those things, and it was certainly worthwhile. And they demonstrated the fact over the last few weeks that the people I happened to be with on some hunts at the Big R Ranch and down at my friend's property in Oglethorpe County, that the people they understood and appreciated the white deer. All right, here's a question: Do deer go on vacation? Do they travel?
Yeah, they both bucks and does may make breeding excursions. They have a home range that maybe up to 500 to 1,000 acres, and then every so often they go and walk about for a couple of days, 24 to 48 hours. They might go 5 to 10 miles outside of their home range and then return. They do
sometimes they don't.
Yep. So, some deer don't. Sometimes they do it in spring, which is obviously not breeding related. We don't really fully understand why they do some of that stuff, but a lot of it, certainly during the breeding season, it promotes genetic diversity to go out way outside the home range and interbreed. And usually that's where your buck fights occur. If bucks have an established pecking order within bachelor groups in the off season, and then during the fall, they don't really fight. They might spar a little bit, but when you get a new buck that's naive to that area, that's where the big knockdown, drag-out fights occur.
That's right.
I was in Texas, and I was discussing this with somebody the other day, that I was in Texas a few years ago and happened to be within 20 feet in a stand on the ground and to witness two big Texas bucks fight it out. And that was nothing short of spectacular. Extremely violent.
Yes.
I mean, dust and trees and plants are flying through the air, 20 feet in the air, and it lasted quite a few minutes before one said, I'm done. That's had enough. I think I'll...
Yeah, they kill each other sometimes.
Yes, absolutely. And they are like most other animals in the wild. Most people have no appreciation for the strength, the speed, the abilities of a wild animal. That's how he stays alive.
I can attest to that. I put my hands on quite a few live deer.
Oh.
And partially sedated, and it's no joke. They are strong.
Yeah, no kidding. I know I had a friend of mine, I got to break here a minute, I had a relative, and he killed a doe. He shot a doe, and the doe was still alive. And he reached the doe's lying there, but she's still alive, and he tried to grab her hoof or foot or whatever the proper terminology is and move her, and she just flipped him 10 feet over into the woods.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah, don't grab the back legs. They'll start kicking pretty good.
And we may talk about this when we get back for a couple of minutes. Is it in the southeast, or where was it that the fellow that got gored?
Arkansas.
Killed him.
Mm-hmm.
We'll let you speculate on what, in a minute. We'll let you speculate on probably what was that situation, and is there anything to be learned from that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Sure.
Yeah, most definitely.
Okay. It's 53 after the hour. This is O'Neill with O'Neill Outside. My guest today, if I run short of introduction capabilities, or thank you capabilities. It's been Charlie Killmaster and Brian Price. They've been visiting us with the DNR in whitetail biology and law enforcement, and we do this a couple of times a year before the turkey season, before the deer season, and I thank you guys for coming up here, because this doesn't, I'm an amateur. I'm not a scientist or a law enforcement official, so most of what I say is strictly hearsay. We're right or wrong, you know what I mean? This is O'Neill. We'll be back. Well, this close of O'Neill Outside for November the 9th. We're right in the middle of hunting season, and maybe maybe my guests, Charlie and Brian, have answered some of your questions and made things more clear. It's always a pleasant visit when they're here for O'Neill. I always learn something, and I hope you do too. And so I want to thank you guys for coming up here in the middle of the night. It's always a great effort, and I appreciate it. And it's the Department of Natural Resources is one of the associates of O'Neill Outside Television and Radio, and I think it's profitable and purposeful for us all. I want to take a moment in thanking you guys, but I want to, as an illustration, this week I hunted with a family, if you will, a dad, a son, and a grandson. And they got the hunt because they made a contribution to the WSB Child Health Care, and so we got to take them hunting. What a wonderful experience that was for them, and for me as an observer, to see the grandfather, the father, and an 8-year-old hunt together. And the knowledge that young man, he was very verbose in a kind, gentle, enthusiastic way. But what he, as an 8-year-old, what he already understood about the whitetail deer, his habits, his capabilities, and what he would have to do before pulling the trigger and after pulling the trigger, and boy was he enthused about it. It's a shame that all 8-year-olds don't have that opportunity. Thanks again, guys. I really do appreciate you coming up. This is O'Neill with O'Neill Outside. And if you're too busy to go fishing and take a child along and go in the deer woods too, you're too busy. We'll see you guys next week.
I once asked a mighty hunter, coming home from the field, how he came to possess such mighty hunting and fishing skill. He said, "I'll tell you a secret, son. I learned everything I know from listening to O'Neill Outside on my radio." O'Neill, O'Neill, O'Neill Outside.